All right, guys, what is up? Welcome back to the BTB Fitness Podcast. So, I guess first things first, we will address the elephant in the room here. So, this is Zuki, and she is my new buddy. My girlfriend and I adopted Suzuki, is her birth name, but we don't really like that name, so we have been calling her Zuki. See, the issue is that she is estimated to be around 5 to 6 years old. So she's already lived her entire life by the name of Suzuki, and she responds really well to it. So we're kind of in a hard spot in terms of renaming her. So we've just kind of been calling her Zuki. She is a very, very good girl. We've only had her for about 3 days now, but she is very, very good, very, very loving. She loves to be with us and be next to us at all times. So Zuki is a Dachshund and Chihuahua mix. So she has the long body of a Dachshund, but she has the face of a Chihuahua. But she's a weenie. She's my queenie weenie. So she is probably going to be next to me the majority of this podcast. And if for whatever reason she gets up and goes and runs around or something, if you guys hear her little pitter patters on the hardwood floor, then please try to ignore that. But there's not really a whole lot that we can do. I don't really want to put her in her crate while I am filming, and I don't really feel that I need to because she kind of just likes to chill out with me. So we'll go ahead and we'll actually get into the podcast for today. So for today's episode of the podcast, I just wanted to recap my experience at my first bodybuilding show this past weekend. Seriously, one of the most memorable experiences of my life. One of the most, fun weekends that I've had in a very, very long time. I kind of mentioned this on TikTok if you guys follow me there, but I have not really experienced something like what I experienced at the bodybuilding show since my competitive gaming days. There's something really cool about a lot of people being gathered in one place that all have same passions and interests and the same goals. And it's really been since my competitive bodybuilding days, my competitive gaming days, that I have really experienced that. Especially, bodybuilding and competitive gaming, both of those things are like so niche, you know what I mean? They're so abnormal to an extent, at least to the general population, that if you're somebody who is kind of involved in those things, you can kind of feel like an outcast to some extent. But to be in a place where you're definitely not an outcast and you're just another, one of multiple people there who have the same experiences is a really, really, really awesome thing. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with today's episode of my podcast. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to recap the entire experience from, I'll probably go Thursday to Saturday. And then I kind of want to give just some general closing thoughts. So first of all, I'm making this video under the assumption that you guys have been following me on TikTok and or Instagram for a decent amount of time, at least long enough to know that I have been prepping somebody for the show. So my client Joey is the client who I trained for the show. Joey is somebody who I have been working with for a very, very long time. Joey used to be a competitive powerlifter. And I actually met Joey through personal training. So when I first moved out to the Chicago suburbs to be a personal trainer, and I was working at a corporate gym out here, he was also another trainer at the same gym. At the time, he would have been probably like 18 or something because he's 21 now, and that was 3 years ago. So he was, obviously younger, duh. But at the time, he was a competitive powerlifter. And he had set, to my knowledge, he had set like a couple state records in powerlifting for the deadlift specifically. He was a very good deadlifter. I don't want to, speak on his behalf, but the point that I'm trying to make is that I've been working with Joey for a long time since his powerlifting days. I started working with Joey just for nutrition while he was a powerlifter. So he was competing in the 220 weight class. and he was usually kind of walking around at like 230, 235-ish. So he was somebody who I worked with for some time to do weight cuts for powerlifting while still maintaining his training performance. And we kind of did that for a couple years, man, probably 2 years, 2.5 years. We did some weight cuts and diets for his powerlifting meets. And then about 1.5-ish, maybe 2 years ago now, I really have no idea of time, but Joey decided to kind of get into bodybuilding, and he wanted to be a bodybuilder. And we have been working together in a bodybuilding perspective for probably over a year now. And we had kind of had our sights set on doing this show since last year. So, you know, it's really kind of crazy to say that out loud, because I mean, I remember when him and I, you know, started putting the plan together to be a bodybuilder, and kind of, you know, we were like, okay, we got a show, but it's in plenty of time, you know, it's over a year away, and here we are. It's just passed. It's actually really crazy to me how fast that year has gone by. But I digress. So we started our prep around, well, you know, we started our prep fairly early. I think we started our prep somewhere around 30-ish weeks out. I just kind of wanted to get him coming down from his peak off-season body weight and just kind of start to get some fat loss going. I didn't know how much weight we would have to lose for him to get into shape, but I was kind of operating under the impression that I would rather him get started earlier and be ready earlier than get started later and take the risk of not being in shape. And in hindsight, I'm definitely glad that that happened, because I feel like even where we were at right now, and I'm sure Joey would agree with this, is that we were just not conditioned enough at this first show. So even, you know, if we had started later, we probably would have been a little bit even more out of shape. So, you know, I'm in hindsight, I'm very, very glad that we started prep when we did. He took a little break in between there. He had a vacation in Florida for the summer. And then we actually started like the second phase of prep around 15 weeks out. And fast forward, here we are. So what I kind of want to do is I don't really want to talk about the prep too much as a whole in terms of specifics. We started our contest prep somewhere around 250-ish pounds. We finished the contest prep. The lowest that I saw on the scale from him on a check-in was somewhere between 193. He weighed in at, I believe, 202, somewhere in the 200s. Realistically, thinking back on it now, we didn't use the body weight scale that much this past weekend. I really was just kind of playing things from visual. I was just going solely off of visuals. So, by the way, I don't want to get sidetracked, but I also don't want to put this off to the end. I filmed a ton of stuff in the hotel room, in my apartment, at check-ins, at backstage. I filmed a lot of stuff this weekend. I am assuming that this podcast episode will be out before my show vlog will be out. But just in case it's not, and I guess it really doesn't even matter, whenever it is that you guys are listening to this podcast, if you are interested in actually seeing like behind the scenes footage of this whole process, then either be on the lookout for that show vlog, or the show vlog will have already been uploaded. So just kind of keep an eye out for that if you guys have any like really specific questions about the process, because I tried to cover everything in that particular vlog. But the contest prep kind of ended in terms of the actual fat loss probably about a week and a half out. I really started to pull back on really aggressive training around that time, and just kind of wanted to coast into the show. And so starting at about a week and a half out, that is really when things started to get, I would say, a little bit easier for him. We started, you know, pulling back on his training. He was using reps in reserve in his training. We started doing a little bit of a carb up process. So I liked to do, my choice for this prep was to do the majority of the carbing up process a couple of days before the show instead of actually closer to the show. From what I kind of experienced with Joey is that when we would do our refeeds during the prep and we would do our high carbohydrate days during the prep, he would gain a very large amount of water weight from those refeeds, but then he would lose that water weight very quickly. And so what I wanted to avoid was a scenario where we kind of carved him up a couple of days before the show, and then we took the risk of him retaining water during that time. So what I would have preferred to do in that situation, which is what I did, is we did multiple refeeds back to back to back. We did 3 days in a row of 1,000 grams of carbs, and we did that on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the week before the show. And then the actual show week, we had carbohydrates more moderate. So he was doing around 300 to 500 grams of carbs per day leading up for peak week. Just for reference, he finished his prep. The lowest his carbs got were around 180. So the 300 carb was a little bit more moderate from him than compared to what he was used to. But he was doing 1,000 grams of carbohydrates every single refeed day. And we did 2 back-to-back refeed days earlier in the week, 2 weeks out, and then we did 3 back-to-back refeed days towards the end of the week because he was just losing the weight very, very quickly. So we'll kind of fast forward into peak week. He took a lot of peak week off. He did 2 pump workouts where the workouts were like very, very easy compared to what he had been doing. Just to kind of give you guys a reference, he was training at like 3 to 4 reps in reserve. So quite a bit easier. Just kind of focused on getting moving, getting some blood and good contractions in the muscle, but not really enough to cause a lot of fatigue to where he would hold water and it would kind of blur the physique that he was going to present. So this last week was really somewhat simple. He started coming to my apartment. Over the course of the entire prep, I was usually seeing him once a week in person because he does not live super far from me. So we would either train together or he would come to my house for his morning fasted check-in. And we would kind of see each other in person at least once a week. When we started to get into the peak week scenario, starting on Tuesday, I was seeing him every day. So I saw him Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, and then on Friday he came to my place and we went to the show together. So I saw him very, very frequently the final week heading into the show. So Thursday morning, I'm going to start this at Thursday, but Thursday morning he came and he checked in with me and we kind of like set out the game plan and everything for what we were going to do the following day, because Friday we had to do the tanning, we had to do the registration, we had to check into the hotel and everything. So he came on Thursday. We kind of set the plan for what we were going to do the next day. Thursday night, I spent packing, kind of getting the cooler and everything ready together, getting all like, clothes, filming equipment, all that type of stuff. And then Friday morning, he had his tanning appointment at 9:30 and registrations were at 11 a.m. And both the tanning and the registrations were at the same place. They were at USA Gym in Bridgeview, Illinois, which was a gym that I was very, very excited to go to. When I first started personal training out here in the Chicago suburbs, at the same job where I met Joey at, I met another gentleman who was a trainer at the gym at that time, and he was in his, I believe he was in his 60s. He was an older gentleman for sure, but he was a masters competitor. He had been competing for like 40 years. And for a 60-something-year-old man, this was a badass motherfucker, man. This was a guy who was doing, I've told stories about this guy on my TikTok before, but this is a guy who was doing 100 and 200 rep sets on the leg press at 60-something years old. I mean, this guy was badass for his age, and he was still competing at that time. I don't know if he still does compete now, but I haven't seen him in some time. But he lived in Bridgeview at the time, and he would always tell me about USA Gym. He would go to USA Gym and visit it very frequently. And so I was super excited to go to USA Gym and actually get to see the gym in person. And I'll probably touch on this a little bit later, but I didn't even really pay attention to the actual gym equipment. I was just kind of like so you know, kind of focused on like what I was doing and just making sure that everything was getting taken care of, that like I never really once actually went onto the gym floor and like took a look at the equipment. So I'm kind of upset at myself about that. Um, at some point, I'll have to go back because the gym is not very far from my house at all. I'll definitely have to go back. But we went to USA Gym on Friday morning. He showed up at my house at about 7:30. We took some fasted shots. We took some poses. We did some posing. He ate his first meal, and then we kind of packed up the car and got headed on to the road. We got to the gym, and he was right on schedule for tanning. Tanning took probably half an hour, maybe 40-ish minutes. While he was getting tanned, I was just talking to a lot of the people there, having a really, really good time, meeting people. And then after his tanning, we had about an hour or so to kill. So we went to a gas station up the road. We kind of wanted to get some like energy drinks and stuff. And then we came back to the gym for the actual check-in, where we would both get registered, because I needed to get a coach pass, so I had to be registered for the NPC. So we had to get registered. I had to get my coach's pass. He had to get, you know, height, weight, all that stuff taken, get his number, all of that stuff. So we went, and that was a very, very smooth process. You know, I'm sure I'll touch on this a little bit later, but literally every single part of this entire process this week was very, very smooth in terms of how the competition was ran. The crew that they had was awesome. Tanning that they had was awesome. The registration was super quick and efficient. I mean, this was a very, very low stress, like easygoing process, and I was super thrilled about that. I didn't really know what to expect. Obviously, this being my first show, I didn't really know how all that stuff was going to go, but it was run extremely, extremely well. So I am very, very happy about that. Let's see. He got his tan, and then we had to go to the gas station, and then we came back and got registered. In the meantime, while all this is happening, it's fucking raining outside. And that is important because Joey just got his spray tan. And the women who spray tan him were making it very clear, don't get wet, don't sweat, blah, blah, blah. So it was raining, and I basically had to like chauffeur him everywhere. Everywhere we were going, I was like driving him up to the door, drop him off, drive up to the door and pick him up, because he just could not get wet and ruin his spray tan. So I was kind of like a chauffeur on this day. But we ended up getting registered. I actually had to go back to the gas station that we went to, because the coach's pass I had to purchase with cash. So I had to go back to that gas station to get cash out of the ATM. Came back and I got my coach's pass. And then from there, at that point, it was roughly 11:30, maybe 12 o'clock. And then we could not check into our hotel until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we called the hotel, see if we could check in early. She said there were no rooms available to check in early, but she told us to call back in an hour. So in the meantime, him and I came back here. We came back to my place. This was the first time that we did some posing right away when I got back. This was the first time that I got to see him pose with the tan on, which was really, really awesome. The tan looked awesome, with the exception of his lats and the inside of his arm. One of the very first things that I noticed, we pulled up and hit a front double right after he got tanned. And I don't know if the women of the tanning business company like missed these spots, or if they just like got worn off from him running, or like sweating or something, rubbing his arms together. But he had no tan at all, like in his lats, armpit, and then like the upper part of his biceps. So we were both kind of worried about that, because neither of us really thought to ask if there would be touch-ups the following day. So we were really kind of worried about that. Obviously, like when you hit a front double, if you can't see his lats or his biceps because there's no tan, that would obviously be a pretty big issue. But we ended up calling, and obviously they reminded us that, you know, the next day they would be doing some touch-ups and stuff. So we got that figured out. But him coming here and posing was kind of the first time that I got to see him with the tan on, kind of start to get a general idea of like what he may start to look like under the stage lights, you know, as best as we can replicate that. For any of you guys who have ever been at a show or done a show, you can't really replicate that stage lighting because it's so bright and it's so hot that you really can't replicate it, 100%. We were just kind of trying to replicate it as much as we can with a ring light. And that is like, nowhere even close, but it's a little bit better than using like natural lighting or using like light bulb lighting to kind of get an idea of where the physique is at. So we got to take shots here at the apartment in the tan, get a general idea of what it is that he looked like. He ate again, and then we went and ran some errands. We kind of picked up some odd and end things, rice cakes, we got some energy drinks, we got some diet soda, all of that type of stuff. And then we ended up hanging out here for a couple more hours. We ended up calling the hotel every hour, seeing if we could check in early, and we couldn't. I was kind of worried about that because the hotel was kind of down by downtown Chicago. It was over by O'Hare Airport, if any of you guys are familiar with the Chicagoland area. It was over by O'Hare Airport. And I wasn't really quite sure how the traffic was going to be around 3, 4 in the afternoon, which is when we had to check in. So we were both really trying to get checked in a little bit earlier, if possible, but it couldn't happen. So we went to the hotel around 3-ish, 3:15 we left. We went to Starbucks on the way there. I lost my Starbucks virginity. I'm sure that clip will be in my vlog. We got to the hotel and we got checked in and we got set up right away. We got all of our food in the fridge. We set up the lighting and everything. This hotel had like a little office desk, which was awesome. I got set up and had everything all like situated there for the night. And then we realized that our hotel room did not have a microwave in it, which kind of threw us off a little bit. So we got to the hotel and we took some posing shots. We took some shots right there in the hotel, and then he ate again. And then the plan was to go out and get a microwave because we needed to get a microwave so that we could heat our food up. Cream of rice was one of our staple carbohydrate sources throughout this prep, and so I wanted him to be able to actually use cream of rice if we could with the microwave. So we ate again, and then we went out to head to a Target to get a microwave. And then on the way down to the hotel in the lobby, we saw that they had 2 microwaves sitting right there. And I asked the women at the desk, I said, is it okay if we use these microwaves? And they said, yeah, sure, use them anytime. So we were staying on the 11th floor, and it was kind of annoying when we wanted to use the microwave. We had to go downstairs and use the elevator and go heat the food up and everything. But I would have rather done that than pay however much money for a microwave that neither of us were really going to use. I mean, realistically, I have a microwave in here already. He's got a microwave at his place already. Like, we were just going to buy a microwave for one night and then not use it. So I would have rather gone up and down the elevator than buy one. So that's what we ended up doing. We ended up going to a different grocery store that was just a couple minutes away, and we just wanted to get some more odd and end things because there were a lot of things that we didn't realize that we had packed, or we didn't pack and realize that we needed to, so we went and we picked those things up. And then pretty much the night before the show in the hotel Friday night was super, super chill. We just kind of watched TV and ate every couple hours and posed like every hour and a half for a couple of rounds. And then we just kind of chilled. So him and I were both pretty like nervous / excited, and we weren't really quite sure how we were going to be able to sleep, quite honestly. Especially in my like competitive gaming days and back in high school when I was playing football. The night before like a big game or something, or the day before a tournament, I really would not sleep very good just because I would be so anxious and nervous. So I was not quite sure how much I was going to be sleeping, but around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, I started to get really tired. So what the plan was, and exactly what happened, is I went to bed around, I don't even know what time, maybe 11 something, but I set an alarm for an hour, and I went and I lay down for 45 minutes to an hour, and then I got up at 12:30. He posed for me. I decided what he was going to eat, and then he ate, and then I went back to bed and set another timer for an hour and a half, and then woke up an hour and a half later. I would watch him pose, we'd eat again, and that process just repeated. So Friday night leading into the show, Saturday morning, my sleep was pretty broken. I was basically laying down for like an hour to a time, hour to hour and a half at a time, getting like an hour of sleep, waking up, going back to bed, hour of sleep, waking up, going back to bed. And he ended up staying up all night. He was, I think, really, really excited, but he was also drinking a lot of energy drinks and stuff, so he was good and he was good to go. And he was watching TV and all that type of stuff. So it was a pretty good, solid night in the hotel. We had no issues with the food or anything. Like, we got all the food was prepped and packed and everything. So we got all of that stuff taken care of, which I was very happy about, because I was kind of worried about having food like go bad or something, but we had no issues whatsoever. Everything worked out very, very well, which leads us into Saturday morning. So we had called Friday, the day before the show, and we had asked about the tanning touch-ups. And we had a mandatory meeting from the commissioner of the NPC in Illinois with him, 8:30 on show day on that morning. So we had to be at the venue the morning of the show so that he could kind of go over like the schedule and rules and all of that type of stuff. So we had to be there at 8:30. And we wanted to get there early so that we could, kind of get touched up on the tanning and everything. So we ended up getting there around 7:45. We were one of the first couple of people in the venue. And when we arrived, they were still setting up the tanning and everything. So we were at least relieved and thrilled that we were there early enough. We had the meeting with the commissioner of the Illinois NPC, and then they started doing touch-ups on tan for men's bodybuilding and classic physique and men's physique, the men's divisions. So the order of the show was that they did all the bodybuilding divisions first, and then the classic physique divisions, and then the men's physique divisions, and then they did all of the women's. So I think they went figure, fitness, bikini. I don't remember the order of the women's divisions right now. I do remember that bikini was the final one. But I don't remember the order of the ones before them. So they started to tan and touch up all the bodybuilders and guys, and then they started to line up all of the bodybuilders to go out for prejudging. And so around that time, we started pumping up, just kind of getting ready, and then they ended up calling him out for prejudging. One of the things that I will know now that I didn't know at the time is we started the pump-up process backstage, and then it was probably another 30 to 45 minutes before he actually ended up going on stage. So I'm thinking that next time we do this, what I would kind of like to experiment with is like literally not even pumping up until they send us out on the stage to do the prejudging, or they send you out. Actually, I keep saying the backstage area. The backstage area where we were at was not actually literally behind the stage. It was in a room in a different side of the venue. So they actually sent him to the actual backstage, like behind the stage area, to go on for prejudging. I am kind of been contemplating that we shouldn't even start the pump-up process until then. Because if we start the pump up too early, it may be too difficult to maintain that pump throughout the course of going on to the show, or actually like stepping on the stage physically. And so that'll be something that we'll kind of live and learn with the next time that we go. But it was a super, super awesome experience to watch him go on stage. I got very, very nervous and anxious when he went out. Up until this point, I've pretty much had like complete control of his prep, telling him what to eat, telling him what to do, blah, 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 blah. And then when he goes on stage, I feel very out of control. Like there's literally nothing that I can do at this point. It's all on him, and it's all on the judges. So that is kind of a shitty feeling in a way, but it's one that I'll, get used to, kind of come to grips with in a way. Kind of probably learned to enjoy it to an extent. But he ended up going on. They had a guy in his class his class had 10 people in it. So they brought it out in 2 groups of 5. Joey was in the second group of 5, and there were 3 guys in the second group of 5 who they had towards the center. They had one guy, I don't want to say kid, I don't know how old he was. They had one guy who was dead center and he didn't get moved the entire time. And then Joey was on his left and there was another guy to his right. Over the course of the prejudging, the guy in the center stayed center, and then Joey and the other guy to his right switched places. After they did the 2 rounds of 5, they called out the top 5 of the class, in which Joey was in the top 5. And it was a very, very similar situation. They had another gentleman in the center, and then they had Joey to his left, and then another guy to the right, and they swapped those back and forth. So I mentioned this in the vlog, but as we finished up the prejudging, we knew that Joey pretty much had top 3, like in his class guaranteed. In my eyes, it was kind of a toss-up between whether he got 3rd or 2nd. Initially, when the top 5 came out, and that one guy was dead center, that one gentleman was dead center, and they didn't move him, I had initially thought, like, this guy hasn't won. Being very transparent and honest, he was a little bit leaner than Joey, and so I kind of knew that he would catch the judges' eyes that way. But as him and I were watching the footage in the car in between prejudging and finals, we were starting to make a case for ourselves, obviously, maybe we can get first. I do think that we were slightly bigger than the guy who ended up winning his class, but the other guy was a phenomenal poser, and he was also leaner than what Joey was. So, really one of those things where you just kind of have to admit that the other guy was better, and that we need to get better as a team, and then go from there. So regardless, at that point, adrenaline was pretty high. We were both pretty ecstatic. We were both very, very happy. But he was also starting to get really, really tired. So at that point, he started to cramp up a little bit. I went to a 7-Eleven up the street to get him some beef jerky just because I wanted him to have something salty. So he was eating that, and he was drinking lots and lots of water, just kind of rehydrating and everything. We didn't really do any dehydration process at all. We just had him drink habitually going up into the show. I didn't feel any need to cut water or anything like that, so we just kind of kept going as usual. We had we had roughly 3-ish hours a break between prejudging and finals. And so him and I hung out in the car a little bit, ate some food, and then we went back in and we actually were watching the women's divisions, and we were watching bikini and everything, and that was so fucking awesome to watch. I've been telling a lot of people, I really want to start going to more shows just to watch, just to actually be in the crowd and actually experience it. So that was a super, super cool experience, just to be in the crowd and watch the women's divisions and everything. And then, I filmed some stuff for the vlog. And then we came in and it was time for finals. So the finals routine was very, very similar to the prejudging routine. They had the same order, but instead of having everybody go out and do comparisons, they had them go out and do their posing routine, and then they presented the awards from there. So Joey went out and he did his posing routine, which will be in the vlog that I uploaded. And then from there, they announced the winners of the class and the placings in each class. That's where Joey ended up getting 3rd in his class out of 10. And he got his trophy for that. And then from there, we went back out into the backstage area, and he wanted to start eating food. Obviously, he had been on a diet for a very, very long time, so he had brought some Oreos and candy bars and stuff that he wanted to eat, so he was going ahead and eating them backstage. The show company also provided pizza for everybody. So that was awesome. We all got to eat and just kind of hang out, and then we went and spent some time with Joey's friends and family, took some pictures and everything. And then from there, we got everything packed up. Joey wanted to go out with his friends that night, go out, get some food and get some drinks and stuff. I really, really wanted to go out, but I was absolutely fucking exhausted this weekend. I think from Thursday night up until Saturday night, I slept like maybe 6 hours total because I didn't really talk about this, but Thursday night heading into Friday, I didn't get a lot of sleep either. I was up late Thursday and up early on Friday because I had other client check-ins that I needed to get done before Joey got to my house at 7:30. So I was up super, super early. I was exhausted. I told one of my clients the other day, I'm not really an energy drink guy. Like, I don't really drink tons of energy drinks, but I was sucking reins down this weekend, like way more than normal. Just drinking caffeine drinks, like trying to keep myself going, especially on show day. So I was super, super tired and wanted to head home from the show. Fucking rear-ended a car on the way home from the show. I was not going fast at all, and neither was the lady that I hit. There was no damage done to either of the cars, so I got very, very, very lucky there. I was honestly so pissed when that happened. I was literally driving home, and I was like, man, this was such a fucking awesome experience, one of the best weekends of my life, and then I fucking rear-end somebody. But like I said, nothing ended up coming of that, thankfully. And then the following day, on Sunday, this is when we picked up this little goober. So this past weekend was an absolute blur for me. But without a shadow of a doubt, this competition was the highlight of it. I mean, man, it was just such an awesome experience, and I cannot wait to do it again. I'm literally so stoked for it. If you guys have, been following my content for a while, you'll be familiar that, like, I want to compete, I want to do a show, and this has, like, I already had, in my eyes, a lot of motivation to do a show, but now I have even more now that I've gotten to experience it, and I'm super, super excited to do that for myself. I'm like, at this point, I'm 98% sure that I'm going to do this same exact show next year. We'll see, but I'm really, really leaning towards doing this show next year. Let's see, what else? It also makes it, a little bit more, it makes it a little bit easier for me to, like, visualize the goal and visualize the process now that I've actually, I've been backstage. I know what the tanning process is going to be like. I know what the registration is going to be like. I know when they call me out on stage, it's going to be roughly X amount of minutes until I go on. So it kind of makes, my goal a little bit more achievable and something that I can really visualize a lot more. So I'm really, really excited for that. My motivation to compete next year is on, like, level 1000 right now. It is super, super, super high. I'm also looking forward to getting to coach more people at more shows because this was a really awesome experience for me to be able to kind of, like, watch other coaches and see what they're doing and watch other athletes and kind of see what they're doing. So I'm really excited just to get more reps at this. For my first time, this was super, super cool, but I want to do this, like, more because I want to get better at it. I really, really, really want to get stuck into this. So I'm, on my motivation is on, like, level 1000 right now. So what else? What are some other closing thoughts? I severely underestimated how much work was going to go into this weekend. So my goal going into this weekend was, I'm going to go into this weekend, I'm going to get a ton of film, I'm going to film a ton of content for my YouTube channel, and I'm going to stay on top of my meals, and it's going to be no problem. I really, really, really underestimated how much work was going to have to go into this. So, at some point this weekend, it was really difficult for me to get my food in. And at some point, Friday afternoon, I made a decision in my head. I was like, look, instead of stressing about getting my food in this weekend, I'm just going to try and eat whenever it makes the most sense, like within my timeline for the day. When I do eat, I'm going to try and, like, make sure that I get in enough, plenty of calories so that I don't lose tons of weight. But obviously, I'm here this weekend as a coach. Coaching is my number one priority. And at that time, like me trying to balance coaching and trying to get all of my food in and doing all of my filming and editing was really a lot for me to handle. So my eating took a big hit this weekend. I posted this on my Instagram, but Friday morning I was 231. Sunday morning I was 221. So I lost 10 pounds in 2 days. Obviously none of that is like muscle or fat or anything. It's all like water weight and muscle glycogen and everything. But nevertheless, I lost a ton of weight over this past weekend. In just 2 days, I lost 10 pounds. Today is Wednesday, so it's been 3 days, 3.5 days since Sunday morning. Excuse me, and I was 221 Sunday morning, and I'm around 227 right now. So I'm on my way back up. I'm not quite up at that 231 yet, but I'm getting close. Hopefully I'll be there within like another couple days, if not a little more. But yeah, guys, I really, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in my vlog too, I really underestimated, how much work I was going to have to do this weekend. So I will be able to plan a little bit better the next time that I coach somebody to be able to kind of get everything in, because I really feel like if I can plan everything out and be a little bit more organized, I don't see any instance where I can't be able to prep an athlete and also stay on top of my own food. If I had been prepared for it, I would have been able to do it this weekend, but I just really underestimated how much work was gonna have to go into this. So next time, I'm gonna obviously be a lot better about getting my own personal food in and everything. But this past weekend, it kind of took a hit for me, just being honest with you guys. I'm somebody who is obviously like really dedicated to my goals and my progress. But I also have to understand that coaching people is quite literally how I pay my bills. And so in a situation like this where I'm the coach, coaching is the priority more so than, my athlete's progress is more of a priority than my own at that personal time or at that particular time. So I just kind of need to keep that in mind. But I do feel like if I can organize and plan things out a little bit better, that there is no reason why I can't be able to do both, why I can't be able to give my full to the athlete while also being able to stay on top of my own personal progress. But live and learn. I will get that next time. Guys, I think that's really all that I kind of wanted to talk about today. I just kind of wanted to recap the experience overall, man. Overall, this weekend was just super awesome. Cannot wait to do it again, both as a coach and for the first time as an athlete. I am super motivated and super excited to get that done and kind of get that first show under my belt and everything. I met tons and tons of cool people this weekend. I mean, Brian, I met 2 Brians this weekend. Zane, Steve, Austin. I met tons. If there's any of you guys who just like happen to be watching this video right now, then Jonah, I met tons and tons of people this weekend. If any of you guys happen to be watching this video right now, leave me a comment or leave a DM or something. But it was so fucking cool to meet all of you guys. Thank you for all of you guys for coming up and saying something to me. That was super nice and genuine of you guys. I really appreciate that a lot. Yeah, you know what? I think that's going to be a good place to leave this one off. So me and Zuki are going to sign off, leave you guys with that food for thought. What are some closing things that I want to plug? If you guys are interested in online coaching, then you can head to my website and fill out the application there. You can also fill it out in the description of the podcast, of my YouTube, whatever it is that you're watching or listening to this to. Like I said earlier in the video, depending on how I upload these things, either my show day vlog will already have been uploaded or I will be uploading it in the near future. So either stay on the lookout for that or go ahead and watch that right now. That'll give you guys like the full like behind the scenes breakdown of the posing, how many carbs we're eating with each meal, how much water we're doing with each meal in between the meals, like all of that type of X's and O's type stuff. That's what the vlog is for. This podcast was just really kind of to recap the weekend as a whole. So I'm going to wrap this one up and go eat a meal and crack on with some more work. So any questions or anything, guys, please leave them in the comments, and I will get all of that stuff addressed as always. And as always, guys, take care of yourselves. Thanks for listening or watching.